Thief! Captain Randall bellowed, his boots kicking up dust as he stormed into Sani's tent by the Red River. Sani's heart pounded as she shielded her brother Kohana, the boy crumpling under Randall's fists. When her knife flashed in defiance, flames of chaos erupted, branding her a fugitive. Run with Kohana into the unforgiving desert or surrender to save him. Her choice would shatter their world. Sani, a 30-year-old Comanche weaver, clings to her tribe's traditions near Texas's Red River in 1900, though white settlers scorn her as backward. Haunted by her parents' death in a militia raid, she raises her rebellious 16-year-old brother Kohana, who dreams of white schools and rejects his heritage. Torn between keeping him close to protect their Comanche legacy and letting him chase his ambitions, Sani also harbors a quiet love for Tahoma, a warrior too scarred by oppression to build a future together. The late afternoon sun cast golden rays over the Red River, painting Sani's tent in warm hues as she guided Kohana's hands through the intricate patterns of Comanche weaving. Her fingers, calloused from years at the loom, moved with practiced grace, but her heart sank as Kohana sighed, his eyes drifting toward the horizon. "This is pointless, Sani," he muttered, tossing the shuttle aside. She forced a smile, explaining how each thread carried their ancestors' stories, but his scowl deepened, insisting that white schools held the future. Sani's chest tightened, memories of their parents' teachings flooding back, their voices now silenced by a militia's bullets. She urged Kohana to try again, her voice soft but firm, hoping to spark pride in him. He slumped, half-heartedly threading the loom, his boredom a silent rebellion. A sudden gust rattled the tent, stirring unease in Sani's bones, as if the river itself whispered of trouble looming near. Inside the tent, tension thickened as Kohana's words cut deeper than Sani expected. "I'm leaving for the city," he declared, his voice sharp with defiance. Sani's hands froze on the loom, her breath catching as she countered that their Comanche roots were worth more than any white education. Kohana scoffed, arguing that learning English and numbers would lift their people, his eyes alight with dreams of a world beyond the river. Sani's voice trembled, warning of the white men's cruelty, their greed for land and power, but Kohana called her stubborn, blind, to progress. Her heart ached, fearing he'd forsake their heritage, their family's legacy unraveling like a frayed thread. The argument paused as hoofbeats thundered closer, dust clouding the air outside. Sani grabbed Kohana's arm, pulling him toward the tent's flap, her pulse racing with dread. "Stay quiet," she whispered, peering out, sensing danger galloping toward them. The tent flap burst open, and Captain Randall stormed in, his face twisted with contempt, flanked by grim-faced militiamen. "Your brother's a thief," he barked, pointing at Kohana, accusing him of stealing horses from a nearby ranch. Kohana stepped forward, denying it fiercely, his fists clenched, but Sani pushed him back, demanding proof. Randall sneered, calling her a backwoods savage, his words stinging like a whip. Kohana's temper flared, lunging toward Randall, only to be shoved down by a soldier's rifle butt. Sani's heart pounded as she shouted for them to stop, her voice drowned by the militiamen's jeers. Randall's cold eyes locked on her, his hand resting on his pistol, daring her to act. The air grew thick with menace, the tent feeling smaller, as if the walls themselves closed in on Sani's dwindling hope. Rage surged through Sani as Randall's men pinned Kohana to the ground, their fists raining blows on his slender frame. She lunged forward, screaming for them to stop, her hands grasping at air. In desperation, she snatched a knife from her belt, its blade glinting as she thrust it toward Randall, her voice a raw growl. "Leave him alone!" Randall laughed, unfazed, ordering his men to seize her. Rough hands gripped her arms, twisting until the knife clattered to the dirt. Kohana lay motionless, blood trickling from his lip, and Sani's world blurred with tears and fury. Randall declared her a criminal, his voice dripping with triumph, vowing to see her hanged. Sani sank beside Kohana, cradling his bruised face, her defiance crumbling into despair as the militiamen's boots echoed out of the tent. Sani knelt by Kohana, her mind racing as the militiamen's shadows lingered outside. Run or surrender. The choice gnawed at her. Fleeing meant dragging Kohana into a merciless desert, hunted like animals, but surrendering could chain her forever, leaving him defenseless. She whispered their father's words, protect family at all costs, her resolve hardening. With trembling hands, she helped Kohana stand, his groans piercing her heart. Under moonlight, she crept to the tribe's corral, stealing a horse, its hooves muffled by soft earth. She hoisted Kohana onto its back, her eyes scanning the darkness for pursuers. They rode into the night, the river's murmur fading, Sani's heart heavy with the weight of a fugitive's life now theirs. The desert stretched endlessly, swallowing Sani and Kohana as their horse plodded through shifting sands. Kohana slumped against her, fever burning his skin, his breath shallow. Sani's throat tightened, searching for water, but only cacti mocked her hope. She stopped by a jagged boulder, easing Kohana to the ground, his weight heavy in her arms. From her pouch she pulled herbs, crushing them to soothe his fever, her hands shaking with fear. She whispered prayers to their ancestors, begging for strength, as Kohana stirred, mumbling apologies. Sani brushed his hair back, vowing to keep him safe, though the vast, starlit desert seemed to whisper of dangers yet to come. Sani's memory flickered to a hidden cave their parents once spoke of, a refuge from raids long ago. She urged the horse toward a rocky outcrop, her eyes straining in the dawn's faint light. The cave's mouth yawned dark and cool, promising shelter. Inside she found a trickle of water and dried meat stashed by some forgotten kin. Kohana's fever eased as he sipped, his eyes meeting hers with fragile trust. Sani recounted tales of their people's resilience, her voice steady to mask her fear. She checked the cave's entrance, ensuring no tracks betrayed them, her heart clinging to the hope of sanctuary, however fleeting. Fear gripped Sani as she sat by Kohana, his shallow breaths filling the cave's silence. Images of their parents' bloodied bodies haunted her, the militia's cruelty a wound that never healed. She feared this cave would become their tomb, Kohana's dreams snuffed out like theirs. He stirred, gripping her hand, promising to stay by her side, his voice weak but earnest. Sani hugged him tightly, warmth spreading through her chest, a flicker of hope amid dread. They'd stay hidden a few days, she decided, her mind racing to find allies. A distant howl echoed outside, sharpening her senses, urging her to plan their next move. Sani's thoughts turned to Nita, a wise Comanche woman whose counsel had steadied her before. She roused Kohana, his strength returning, and they slipped from the cave under dawn's cover. The path to Nita's camp wound through scrub and stone, every rustle spiking Sani's nerves. They met hunters from their tribe, who warned of Randall's men scouring the plains. Sani draped a shawl over Kohana, masking his bruised face, her heart pounding at each stranger's glance. By midday, they reached Nita's camp, her warm embrace easing Sani's fears. Nita listened to their plight, her eyes sharp with resolve, promising aid as Sani exhaled. Feeling the weight lift, if only slightly, Nita's tent glowed with firelight as Sani poured out their story, Kohana's bruises stark in the shadows. Nita nodded, vowing to summon Tahoma, a warrior whose loyalty Sani trusted. She sent a runner with a coded message, her hands steady despite the danger. Kohana sat quietly, captivated as Nita spoke of Comanche heroes, her words weaving pride into his heart. Sani watched, hope stirring, though fear of Randall's pursuit lingered. Tahoma's reply came swiftly. He was coming. Sani gripped Kohana's hand, their eyes meeting in silent agreement to fight on. the fire's crackle a reminder of the battle ahead. The stars glittered coldly above Nita's camp as Tahoma rode in, his silhouette tall against the night. Sani's heart lifted at the sight of him, his familiar strength a beacon in her storm. He dismounted, clasping her shoulder, his voice low but firm. "I'll keep you and Kohana safe." He proposed leading them to a Kiowa camp, allies who could shield them from Randall's wrath. Sani hesitated, her fear of betrayal sharp, but Tahoma's steady gaze eased her doubts. Kohana, wide-eyed, hung on Tahoma's words, his trust in the warrior growing. Tahoma checked their horse, tightening the saddle, while Sani packed supplies Nita offered. As they prepared to move, Sani's gratitude for Tahoma warmed her, though the shadow of pursuit loomed, urging them into the dark. Sani's pulse quickened as they slipped away from Nita's camp, the desert air sharp against her skin. Tahoma led, mapping a path to the Kiowa, while Kohana rode close, his silence heavy with fear. Nita's parting gift, dried meat and water, weighed in Sani's pack, a reminder of her kindness. Tahoma whispered for silence, sensing danger, and Sani's grip tightened on the reins. They planned to travel by night, hiding in daylight, each step a gamble against Randall's men. Kohana's fever lingered, his cough soft but worrying, and Sani prayed for his strength. Tahoma's hand brushed hers, a fleeting comfort, as they pressed on, the desert vast and unforgiving around them. A narrow trail by the river stretched before them, the water's murmur masking their hoofbeats. Suddenly, shouts shattered the quiet, and Clyde's men sprang from the shadows, rifles glinting. Sani's heart lurched as Tahoma drew his knife, slashing at a soldier to clear their path. She yanked Kohana into a thicket, thorns tearing her skin, her breath ragged with panic. Tahoma fought fiercely, his arm bloodied by a grazing bullet, but he drove the attackers back. Clyde's voice roared threats, promising vengeance, before his men retreated. Sani emerged, trembling, to bandage Tahoma's wound, her hand shaking as Kohana clung to her, the ambush a stark reminder of their fragile escape. Dawn's light found them in a shallow gully, the river's edge a temporary haven. Sani cleaned Tahoma's wound, her fingers gentle but her mind racing with guilt for endangering him. Kohana sat pale, his eyes wide from the night's violence, and Tahoma knelt, teaching him to steady his breath. "We're still here," Tahoma said, his voice a quiet anchor. Sani apologized, her voice breaking, but Tahoma shook his head, insisting he chose this fight. She scanned the horizon, fearing more pursuers, and proposed contacting the Kiowa soon. They rested briefly, the gully's cool earth a fleeting comfort, though Sani's heart remained heavy with the road ahead. Sani's resolve hardened as she urged Tahoma to send word to the Kiowa. He scratched a message on hide, entrusting it to a passing Comanche hunter who knew the way. The hunter promised swift delivery, his eyes kind but wary of Randall's reach. Kohana asked about the Kiowa, his curiosity a spark in his fear, and Tahoma shared tales of their shared battles with Comanche kin. Sani's hope flickered as the hunter returned word. The Kiowa would shelter them. She saddled their horse, her hand steadier, though her fear for Kohana's health lingered. Tahoma scouted ahead, ensuring no traps, and Sani whispered thanks to the spirits, their journey now bound for the Kiowa's embrace. The Kiowa camp emerged from the desert haze, its tents a welcome sight after days of flight. Chief Tahoma greeted Sani warmly, his weathered face kind as he promised protection. Sani recounted Randall's cruelty, her voice steady but laced with pain, while Kohana fidgeted, awed by the bustling camp. Children swarmed Kohana, inviting him to play, and his shy smile eased Sani's heart. Tahoma met with Kiowa warriors, planning defenses against militia raids. Sani thanked Tahoma, her gratitude deep, though Randall's shadow clung to her thoughts. The chief warned of soldiers nearby, urging vigilance, and Sani nodded, her resolve to uncover Randall's plans growing stronger. A Kiowa scout galloped into camp, his news chilling. Randall was rallying men to hunt Sani, claiming she'd burn their ranches next. Sani's stomach twisted, fearing the Kiowa would suffer for sheltering her. Tahoma suggested spying on Randall's camp to learn his moves, his eyes fierce with determination. Sani agreed, her anger at Randall's lies outweighing her fear, though she refused Kohana's plea to join them. Kohana sulked, but Sani cupped his face, promising to return. She and Tahoma gathered bows and knives, their plans set for nightfall. The scout offered to guide them, and Sani steeled herself, the weight of their mission pressing heavy as they slipped into the dusk. Under a moonless sky, Sani and Tahoma crept toward Randall's camp, the glow of campfires their guide. They hid behind scrub, watching soldiers sharpen blades and load rifles. Sani's breath caught as she spotted a tent stacked with papers, its guard distracted. She signaled Tahoma, who nodded, slipping closer to draw the guard away. Sani darted inside, her hands trembling as she rifled through maps, finding a letter sealed with Mason's mark. Tahoma hissed a warning, footsteps nearing, and Sani stuffed the letter inside her shirt. They fled, hearts pounding, the camp's edge fading behind them, Sani's mind ablaze with the letter's secrets. Back at the Kiowa camp, Sani unfolded the letter under flickering torchlight, her hands shaking as she read. It detailed Randall and General Mason's plot to pit Comanche against Kiowa, staging attacks to justify seizing their lands. Sani's blood boiled, her voice rising as she shared the betrayal with Tahoma and Tawakoni. Tahoma clenched his fists, vowing to expose them, while Tawakoni urged gathering more proof. Sani's resolve burned brighter, her fear for Kohana fueling her fight. Kohana listened, his eyes wide, pride replacing his earlier rebellion. Sani hugged him, promising justice, as the camp's fires cast long shadows, mirroring the battle ahead. Sani and Tahoma huddled with Tawakoni, plotting to raid Mason's main camp for evidence to bury the conspirators. The chief offered 5 Kiowa warriors, their faces set with resolve, but Sani insisted Kohana stay behind, her voice firm despite his protests. Kohana nodded, his trust in her growing, and helped pack supplies instead. Tahoma sharpened his blade, his silence heavy with purpose, while Sani memorized the letter's details, her anger a steady flame. The warriors chanted softly, blessing their mission, and Sani felt their strength flow into her. They set out at dusk, the desert's vastness swallowing them, Sani's heart pounding with the hope of ending Randall's lies. The night was thick with shadows as Sani and her group crept toward General Mason's camp, the air heavy with the scent of dust and pine. Tahoma led, his steps silent, signaling the Kiowa warriors to fan out. Sani's heart thumped as she slipped into a tent, her fingers rifling through papers under faint lantern light. She found a map marked with fake attack sites and a ledger detailing payments to mercenaries, her breath catching at the betrayal. A guard's shout broke the silence, and Tahoma tackled him, giving Sani time to hide the documents in her shirt. The group fled, boots pounding dirt, as gunfire erupted behind them. Sani's legs burned, but she clutched the evidence, her resolve fierce. They vanished into the forest, the camp's chaos fading, leaving her trembling with hope and fear. Sani's group raced through dense woods, Mason's soldiers hot on their trail, their shouts echoing like wolves. Tahoma guided them across a shallow stream, water soaking Sani's moccasins, masking their tracks. A Kiowa warrior grunted, an arrow grazing his arm, and Sani tore her shawl to bind his wound, her hands steady despite panic. The map and ledger pressed against her chest, a lifeline she couldn't lose. They ducked into a narrow cave, the darkness swallowing them as soldiers passed by. Sani whispered thanks to the warrior, guilt gnawing at her for his pain. Tahoma's hand squeezed hers, his eyes promising safety, and they waited, hearts pounding, until silence signaled their escape. Dawn broke over the Kiowa camp as Sani and Tahoma returned, the stolen documents clutched tightly. Kohana ran to her, his eyes wide with relief, and she hugged him, her fear easing. But news from a Comanche runner chilled her. Clyde had torched a nearby camp, burning papers like those she held. Sani's stomach dropped, realizing the original letter was gone, her evidence now their only hope. Tahoma urged calm, insisting the copies were enough, his voice a steady anchor. Tahoma suggested sending them to a federal agent, and Sani nodded, her anger at Clyde flaring. She traced the map's lines, vowing to stop Mason, her heart heavy with the lives at stake. Sani sat by the fire, penning a letter to the federal agent, her words sharp with truth about Mason and Randall's scheme. She attached the map and ledger, her hands trembling with urgency. Tahoma volunteered to deliver it, his face set with determination, and a Kiowa warrior joined him for protection. Kohana watched, his worry clear, and Sani pulled him close, promising Tahoma's return. She prayed silently, her faith in justice fragile but growing. The camp buzzed with tension, warriors sharpening spears, and Sani felt the weight of her people's trust. Tahoma rode out at dusk, the letter their beacon, leaving Sani to wait, her hope flickering like the firelight. Sani paced the Kiowa camp, her eyes scanning the horizon for Tahoma's return. Word came that Vance, the land baron, had threatened the agent, his wealth stalling the investigation. Sani's fists clenched, her frustration boiling at the injustice. Kohana asked if they'd fail, his voice small, and she knelt, swearing they'd fight on. Tahoma galloped back, dust on his face, confirming the agent had the documents and promised action. Sani's heart lifted, but Vance's shadow loomed, her fear for the agent growing. She proposed a tribal meeting to expose the plot publicly, her voice fierce. Tahoma nodded, his trust in her unwavering, and they began planning, the camp alive with purpose. A stranger rode into camp at twilight, his black horse sleek, his face hidden by a hat. The rider, as Sani named him, spoke softly, revealing he knew of Mason's hidden papers. Her pulse quickened as he led her to a distant cave, its walls lined with crates of documents. Sani's hand shook as she uncovered letters detailing Vance's funding, her anger surging at the conspiracy's depth. She copied key pages, her lantern flickering, while the rider stood watch, his silence reassuring. Kohana, left behind, had begged to come, but Sani promised to share the truth. They returned under starlight, the papers heavy in her pack, her hope burning brighter for justice. Sani gathered with Tahoma and Tahoma, her voice steady as she proposed a grand meeting of Comanche and Kiowa to reveal Mason's treachery. Tahoma sent runners to summon tribal leaders, his eyes alight with pride. Sani practiced her speech, her words honed to cut through doubt, while Kohana helped carve wooden markers for the meeting ground. Tahoma scouted the site, ensuring no ambush, his vigilance a comfort. Sani's fear for Kohana's safety lingered, but his eager help warmed her heart. The camp pulsed with anticipation, drums echoing, and Sani felt the spirits of her parents urging her on. She clutched the documents, ready to face the tribes, her courage aflame against the coming storm. Clyde's cruelty struck again as word reached Sani. He'd captured Nita, her ally, for aiding their cause. Sani's heart sank, picturing Nita's kind face, now a prisoner in Randall's camp. A Comanche boy delivered the news, his voice trembling, and Sani vowed to free her. Tahoma cautioned patience, his hand on her arm, but her anger burned too hot. Kohana offered to scout, his bravery new, and Sani hugged him, refusing to risk him. She and Tahoma planned a night raid, gathering Kiowa warriors, their faces painted for stealth. Sani whispered a prayer for Nita, her resolve ironclad, the camp's firelight fueling her determination to strike back. Moonlight bathed Randall's camp as Sani and Tahoma led their warriors through the brush, silent as shadows. Tahoma shot arrows to distract guards, their cries piercing the night. Sani slipped into Nita's tent, cutting her ropes, her heart racing as Nita whispered Mason's latest plans. They fled, but Clyde's shout rang out, his men closing in. A warrior blocked a soldier's blade, giving Sani and Nita time to escape. Sani's lungs burned as they reached the trees, Nita's hand tight in hers. Clyde's curses faded, but Sani's fear lingered, knowing he'd hunt them. Nita's gratitude warmed her, their bond a spark of hope amid the chaos. Nita's safe return brought relief to the Kiowa camp, her voice strong as she shared Mason's overheard schemes. More staged attacks to incite war. Sani added these to her speech, her words sharper with each betrayal. Tahoma fortified the meeting site, posting sentries, his focus unwavering. Kohana carved a small loom for Nita, his gift a sign of his growing pride, and Sani's eyes stung with love. The tribes began arriving, their drums a heartbeat in the dusk, and Sani rehearsed once more, her voice rising with passion. She prayed for strength, feeling Tahoma's sacrifice and Nita's courage beside her. The meeting loomed, a chance to end the lies, Sani's heart a mix of fear and fire. The sun dipped low, casting a fiery glow over the clearing where Comanche and Kiowa gathered, their faces etched with resolve. Sani stepped forward, her voice steady as she unveiled Randall and Mason's plot, her words cutting through the murmurs. She held up the stolen map, pointing to marked attack sites, and passed around the ledger, its numbers damning. Chiefs leaned closer, their eyes narrowing with anger, while Kohana stood by her, his chest puffed with pride. Tahoma circled the crowd, watching for threats, his bow ready. Sani's heart raced, but she pressed on, calling for unity to protect their lands. The crowd roared agreement, fists raised, and Sani felt their strength lift her, though fear of retaliation lingered. A hush fell as the rider strode into the circle, his black horse tethered nearby, his presence commanding. He declared himself a Comanche veteran, once forced to serve Mason, his voice heavy with regret. He presented a deserter from Mason's ranks, who confessed to staging attacks, his words sparking gasps. Sani's hope soared, her eyes meeting Tahoma's, his nod a silent vow. The tribes demanded justice, their chants rising, and Kohana gripped her hand, his awe clear. The rider's gaze steadied Sani, urging her to finish the fight. The meeting pulsed with purpose, the air electric with their shared defiance. Chaos erupted as Clyde's men crashed through the trees, rifles blazing, his snarl fixed on Sani. Arrows flew, one grazing her arm, but Tahoma leaped in front, shielding her. A bullet tore through his chest, and he crumpled, blood soaking the earth. Sani screamed, dropping beside him, her hands pressing his wound, tears blurring her vision. Kiowa and Comanche warriors surged, capturing Clyde, his men scattering. Sani cradled Tahoma, his breath fading, his eyes locking on hers with a final fierce love. Kohana knelt, sobbing, as the fighting stopped. Sani's heart shattered, but she vowed to honor Tahoma's sacrifice, her grief fueling her resolve. The tribes, united by Tahoma's death, dragged Mason and Randall before the crowd, their faces pale under the chief's glares. Sani stood, voice raw, recounting their crimes, the map and ledger her proof. The deserter testified again, exposing every lie, and the tribes booed, demanding punishment. Mason stammered denials, but Randall's silence betrayed him. Kohana, eyes red, handed Sani more documents, his courage steadying her. Chiefs called for a trial, their voices a thunderous chorus. Sani felt Tahoma's spirit beside her, urging justice, her pain sharpening her words. The crowd's unity was a wall, unyielding, as Mason and Randall were bound, their power crumbling. A federal agent arrived, summoned by Sani's letter, his badge glinting in the torchlight. He studied the documents, nodding as the deserter spoke, his face grim with understanding. He promised to arrest Mason and Randall, ensuring a fair trial, and Sani exhaled, relief mingling with sorrow. Kohana asked if their lands were safe, his voice small, and the agent assured him they'd be protected. Chiefs clapped, trusting the agent's word, while Sani prayed silently for Tahoma's soul. She thanked the agent, her voice thick, and he tipped his hat, vowing swift action. The tribe stood taller, hope rising, though Sani's heart ached for her lost warrior. Mason and Randall faced a federal court. The courtroom hushed as Sani took the stand. She spoke clearly, presenting the map, ledger, and rider's documents, each piece a nail in their guilt. The deserter's testimony echoed hers, detailing staged attacks, and the judge's eyes narrowed. Mason's lawyer argued weakly, but the evidence overwhelmed. Randall glared at Sani, his hatred cold, but she met his gaze, unflinching. Kohana sat behind her, his presence a quiet strength, proud of her courage. The jury returned swiftly, sentencing both to life in prison, and Sani's shoulders eased, justice, a balm for her wounds. The tribes outside cheered, their victory sealed. The agent turned his focus to Vance, the land baron funding Mason's scheme, and Sani met him to share the rider's latest papers. Vance was arrested at his mansion, his wealth no shield, and Sani's testimony linked him to the plot. His ledgers, seized by the agent, showed payments for fake raids, and Vance's face fell in court. The judge ordered his imprisonment, his lands forfeited to the tribes. Kohana marveled at the news, asking how Sani stayed strong, and she smiled, crediting Tahoma's memory. The agent thanked her, calling her a hero, and Sani felt her people's future brighten. Chiefs celebrated, their lands secure, a new dawn breaking. Sani's hands shook as she faced Clyde in court, his smirk fueling her anger. She accused him of burning camps and killing Tahoma, her voice breaking but fierce. Clyde confessed, boasting of Mason's orders, his arrogance chilling the room. The judge sentenced him to decades behind bars, and Sani exhaled, her grief for Tahoma easing slightly. Kohana hugged her, asking how it felt to win, and she said it was for their people, her eyes wet. The tribes gathered outside, singing victory songs, and Sani joined them, Clyde's defeat a step toward healing. She felt Tahoma's spirit, proud, urging her to keep fighting. The agent summoned Sani to discuss Mrs. Mason, suspected of knowing the plot. Sani shared Nita's overheard words, confirming Mrs. Mason's silence, her fear protecting her husband. In a quiet hearing, Mrs. Mason admitted her guilt, her voice trembling, and received a light fine, her shame punishment enough. Sani felt no hatred, only pity, and Kohana asked why she spared her. Sani explained that mercy strengthened their cause, her heart steady. The agent praised her wisdom, and the tribes nodded, respecting her choice. Sani stood taller, justice nearly complete, her people's safety within reach. Sani met the agent again, uncovering Vance's network of hired thugs through seized letters. She identified names from the rider's documents, her memory sharp, and the agent arrested a dozen men, each confessing to staged attacks. Their trials were swift, their sentences long, and Sani watched, her anger fading to relief. Kohana asked if this ended the fight, and she nodded, saying their lands were safe. The agent gave her a medal, calling her the tribe's voice, and she accepted it for Tahoma. Chiefs held a feast, honoring her, and Sani felt peace settle, the conspiracy's roots finally severed. Sani sat by the Red River, the water's gentle ripple a balm for her weary heart. Kohana joined her, his eyes softer now, reflecting on Tahoma's sacrifice and their hard-won justice. He apologized for wanting to leave, his voice thick with regret, and Sani hugged him, her love a quiet strength. She offered to teach him weaving, her hands tracing the loom's familiar lines, and Kohana nodded, eager to learn. They spoke of their parents, their laughter echoing in memory, and Sani's tears fell, mingling with hope. Kohana promised to stay, his rebellion gone, and Sani felt their bond mend. She gazed at the river, Tahoma's spirit lingering, urging her to carry on. Sani walked to the clearing where Tahoma fell, her steps heavy with grief. She knelt, placing a woven blanket on the earth, its patterns a tribute to his courage. Kohana stood beside her, his hand on her shoulder, and she shared her unspoken love for Tahoma, her voice breaking. He listened, eyes wet, vowing to honor Tahoma's memory. Sani prayed softly, asking the spirits to guide him, her heart aching but resolute. The wind stirred, carrying her words, and she felt peace settle. They returned to camp, Sani's purpose clear, to protect their people for him. Sani rode to a nearby settler town, her heart pounding as she faced a crowd wary of Comanche. She spoke of Mason's lies, showing the map that sparked false fears, her voice calm but firm. Settlers listened, some ashamed, and a farmer apologized for believing the rumors. Sani called for peace, her eyes meeting theirs, and Kohana added his voice, urging trust. A settler leader shook her hand, promising cooperation, and Sani's hope grew. The crowd dispersed, whispers of change spreading, and Sani felt Tahoma's dream of unity alive. She and Kohana rode back, the horizon bright with possibility. Vance's final trial loomed, and Sani stood in court, her voice steady as she presented the rider's last documents. The judge studied Vance's ledgers, his face grim, and sentenced him to life, stripping his empire. Vance's glare faltered, his power broken, and Sani exhaled, justice complete. The courtroom buzzed, settlers nodding approval, and Kohana whispered his pride. The judge ordered Vance's lands returned to the tribes, a victory Sani hadn't dared hope for. She thanked the agent, her gratitude deep, and left the court, the weight of years lifting. The tribes cheered outside, their future secure, Sani's heart full. The rider appeared at dusk, his horse's hooves soft on the camp's edge. He handed Sani a final bundle of Vance's papers, his voice low, revealing years of tracking the Baron's crimes. Sani thanked him, her respect profound, and he tipped his hat, refusing her offer to stay. Kohana asked why he fought alone, and the rider spoke of duty to their people. The papers strengthened Vance's sentence, the agent confirmed, and Sani felt the conspiracy's end. She offered the rider a woven band, a token of thanks, and he accepted, riding off. Sani watched, her heart steady, knowing his shadow guarded them still. Nita called a meeting of Comanche and Kiowa chiefs, her voice strong as she praised Sani's courage. Sani stood, urging a lasting alliance against future threats, her words echoing Tahoma's hope. Chiefs signed a pact, their hands steady, and Kohana watched, learning leadership. Nita shared her role in Sani's fight, her eyes warm, and Sani hugged her, gratitude overwhelming. The chiefs feasted, drums beating, and Sani felt their unity as a shield. Kohana carved a pact marker, his pride clear, and Sani smiled, their people stronger. The firelight danced, sealing their bond, a promise for tomorrow. Kohana sat at Sani's loom, his fingers clumsy but determined. Weaving a simple pattern, Sani guided him, her voice soft, praising his first try. A blanket with bold lines. He gave it to Nita, his shy smile bright, and Sani's heart swelled, seeing their mother in him. Kohana spoke of staying, his dreams now tied to the tribe, and Sani nodded, tears falling. She told him of their family's weavers, their legacy alive, and he listened, eager. The tent glowed with firelight, their bond a quiet victory. Sani felt the river's pulse, their heritage unbroken, Kohana's future hers to shape. Sani met settlers again, the town square tense but open. She exposed Mason's full plot, her voice clear, showing how lies fueled hatred. Settlers pledged to ignore rumors, their faces earnest, and Sani proposed a trade pact. Kohana spoke of peace, his youth disarming, and a settler chief agreed, signing terms. The crowd clapped, hope rising, and Sani felt a bridge form. She thanked them, her heart lighter, and Kohana beamed, proud of their work. They left, the town's goodwill a step toward harmony, Sani's faith in coexistence growing. The agent rode into camp, announcing the Comanche land's legal protection, a federal decree. Sani reviewed the papers, her relief profound, knowing their home was safe. Chiefs gathered, thanking her, and she credited Tahoma, her voice thick. Kohana asked how to keep their culture, and Sani spoke of teaching their ways. The agent saluted her, calling her a guardian, and she accepted, humble. The camp celebrated, drums echoing, and Sani joined, her spirit lifted. The river sparkled, a witness to their triumph, Sani's heart at peace. Kohana wove beside Sani, his blanket nearly done, a symbol of his choice to stay. Randall, Mason, Clyde, and Vance languished in cells, their plots buried. Sani led with courage, her voice guiding the tribe, while Tahoma's sacrifice burned bright in their hearts. Kohana grew, embracing Comanche ways, his pride a mirror of hers. The land stood free, its rivers and plains safe, and Sani felt her parents' spirits smile. The tribe thrived, their songs rising, and Sani wove on, her love for Kohana weaving their future. Justice won, peace held, their story a testament to resilience.